Okay, we're recording.
On we blindly stumble. Hello, Keller Williams, New England. Great to see you. Brad Knowles here. Um, I just want to say just say thank you. You guys, I look forward to this. Look forward to doing a handful of these per week. Look forward to connecting with some faces I've seen in classrooms in the past. Some of my own agents in our office. I see a Patty Foden hiding there in the corner, and being able to see you guys is it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. So I appreciate you, and we'll dive into tactic 8. Tactic 8, stand out from the competition, seller staging strategies. Now, let's be clear. If you look in the background, I am not a stager. Okay? Clearly, I am not a stager. Now, that doesn't mean that the properties that we're dealing with don't need to be staged. Okay? I get the great pleasure of working with people from Maine all the way through upstate New York in terms of people that I coach currently. And in every single state in that Northeast, in every team I'm working with, we are seeing property go under contract having never been shown. Okay? These are virtual showings that are turning into pendings. Okay? Now, this has always happened, right? I don't know how long each of you have been in real estate, but one of the very first properties I ever put under contract, it was an investor. The investor had never stepped foot in that property, right? The numbers worked. The opportunity worked. That's all that mattered. And yeah, we eventually got into it sometime between the time we put it under contract and the time we closed. But I promise you, there are people out there willing to buy based off of what they see virtually, and I think that the best post I saw the other day is, if you're willing to meet your spouse online, you're probably willing to buy a house online, right? So just keep in mind that for some of us, this is going to be challenging because we're not used to it. And I just want to check yourself and look in the mirror and go, what's holding me back here? And is it me, not my client, right? 4 deals that were put under contract in our productivity coaching program up here in the state of Maine over this past weekend. 2 of them were with actual showings. 2 of them were virtual. Now think about that. By definition, the fact that it was a PC program, these are people who were new to real estate. If the young whippersnappers can do it, right, we can all do it. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that we've got this opportunity here to do this in a new and fresh way. So why do we bring that up when we talk about staging? I bring it up because the images that we use matter so much more if it's one of the few tools we have left, right? If I'm not actively showing property right now, and in the city of Portland, we cannot show a house right now. We're not supposed to. Portland has a stricter guidelines than the state of Maine as a whole, so we cannot show property right now in Portland. However, I can have a virtual tour and I can post that virtual tour. Well, then what they're taking the pictures of freaking matters, right? So being partnered with a qualified stager in your area, I think is hugely important right now. And I'd be getting I would get off of this call and I would get onto the phone with the stager you've worked with in the past, say, can we set up a 20, 30-minute conversation and figure out what they could do if we needed to stage a house virtually? How could they provide their service with your customer to stage a house virtually so that the photography that is done, that the videos that are done in such a fashion that they best present the property? One of my favorite quotes in this section is near the end. There are 2 priorities for your house to sell: price and pristine. If either is missing, your house will sit on the market unsold. Now, some of us have been living through the hot, frothy seller markets of the last couple of years, may find that hard to wrap our head around. We might look at that and go, yeah, but Brad, man, I could throw any freaking price tag on something and it freaking sticks. Yup. And that's most likely going to change. Condition wasn't that big of an issue before, Brad. Yup. And that's likely going to change. Okay. I want you to start acting like we're already in a buyer's market. I want you to start acting like we're already in a buyer's market. Now, some of you aren't experiencing that, but it moves so quickly that the conversation you're having with the seller today, who's potentially putting their house on the market in a week or 2 or 3, may be showing up on the market in a very different world than we're in today. So I want to act like pristine matters. I want to act like price matters. I want you to be having some conversations, right? I want you to be having some conversations right now with people that really stresses the fact that we're going to take a very close look at pricing, and it may need to be adjusted from the time we initially take a listing to the time that listing goes on the market. That's very possible. One of our guys that had a conversation with today, if the person had asked to sell their main property 3 weeks ago, the price would have been $25,000 higher. He's recommending $25,000 less, and he's already primed the pump that it could easily drop by another $50,000, depending on what happens with all of this. Okay, so that means that our pendulum will have swung from frothy seller to closer to buyer market. And in the process of swinging through that, right, we've got to be positioned for this price and beauty show. We've really got to be positioned for it. Thoughts so far? Somebody unmute and tell me what you've heard.
So Brad, yesterday I heard that we really need to be having the conversation that we are not telling our sellers what it's worth today, because buyers are viewing it what it's worth in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks.
Yeah. The buyers are looking at it going, yeah. And here's the kicker, our typical process of doing a comparative market analysis is to look at comparable homes that sold in the last 90 days or so, right? Well, if you're looking at a house that sold mid-February, what actual impact does that have on the world we're living in today? Like, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between what happened 6 weeks ago and what's happening today. What is significantly more accurate is what Penn did in the last week. What's my competition that came on in the last 36, 48 hours? Does that make sense? We want to be looking as hyper focused on the latest possible information we have. Okay? And our properties need to be able to stand out from the competition. Well, there's only 2 ways we do that. We do it with price, right? We price ahead of the market. And 2, we got to make sure that sucker's pretty. Now, we're challenged with that a little bit right now. In some areas, we don't even feel like we can have a stager go into the house. So how do we stage virtually? How do we get the support of a professional to give us the advice so that we can do the best we can? For some of you, you might have to walk your seller through taking the photographs of the property. That might be how we're getting their house on the market right now, depending on the level of restrictions that we're doing, right? If you can get a photographer in there, we want to make sure we've staged the house for photography. I will tell you, this is one of the best lessons I ever learned as a real estate agent, was selling my own home, feeling like I'd already staged it, having a professional come in, have them bring a stager, me questioning, like, do we really need a stager? I've been in the business for 10 years. I think I know what I'm doing. Here comes the stager. And her message was, get rid of half your shit. Right? I'd already gotten rid of half the shit. Right? So I'm going from 100% down to 25%. And then the genius piece was a whole list of things to do to stage specifically for the photographs. We staged the house twice. We staged it for the photography, and then we staged it for actual showings. And there were some subtle nuances in between them. And I think that's really important. So working with a professional right now to make sure you're getting the best possible photographs and video you can, I think is paramount. I really cannot stress that enough, because we are going to be living in a time for at least a short while where there are going to be people who are making home buying decisions based off of strictly photography and video. Does that make sense? So the other thing I would say is this, and we've touched on it here, I think, but to Joanne's point, you know, we're doing 87 Zooms a day, so they're kind of mixed together a little bit. I love the idea of whatever you set up as a virtual tour. Let's say you do Matterport, or you have a photographer do a virtual tour or something like that. Whatever that is, that's above and beyond just the photos of the home that you're posting in the MLS and pushing out to the syndications. I would mark it in my description the fact that we have that virtual tour and that they need to reach out to you, the agent, to get it. And the reason I would do that is now you'll know who's got an interested buyer, right? If Amanda's got an interested buyer for Kimberly's house, I don't know if we can't frickin' show it. Because how I would find out in the past is Amanda would set up a showing either by calling or going through showing time or whatever the process is in your area. And we would then know, like, hey, I've got somebody we're dancing with here. Well, if everything's virtual online, I don't know. So this way I can get people to have to do some sort of call to action for me to then be able to say, ooh, you've got somebody who's interested. Great. Now we get a conversation going. And to me, that's critical. The conversation piece is where we get to show up as brokers. That's where we get to show up as brokers, right? What are your clients' concerns? Well, what about this? Have they thought about that? If we could solve that for you, do you think they'd be willing to put in an offer? All those conversations I now get to have because I know I have a dancing partner. Without the dancing partner, just me, you know, goofing off in the mirror. So I would highly recommend we find ways to take that virtual tour and have it effectively become our showing. Okay, especially in the areas where showings are really restricted right now. And I want to make sure that you walk away from this knowing we can sell a house without somebody going into it. We are able to do that, right? Are we preparing our buyers for that? You know, are we preparing them for the possibility of, hey, not for nothing, our best case scenario may be to tie up this property by viewing everything we can virtually and then putting in an offer and having that contingent on an inspection. And maybe we just show up to the house once because that's the least amount of risk. We show up to the house once, we have the buyers go through, they leave, we have the inspector go through, they leave, we have a powwow after on a Zoom call with the inspector, with our client. And in that 45 minutes or an hour, we're going to determine whether we continue to move forward with the property based off of everything we know. We walk in the property once from start to finish. It's a very different world than how some of us have been living, right? Yeah, value is a moving target. I liked it. You know, ask which way it's going. Do they think it's going up or going down? I mean, that's a great way to just frame, you know, here's just a simple question you can ask a seller. If we hit double-digit unemployment in the United States in the next 45 days, do you think that's going to have a positive impact on your pricing or a negative impact on your pricing? What do you think? Just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Down, down, baby, down by the roller coaster, sweet, sweet baby, I don't want to let you go. Yeah, going down. It's going to go down. Yeah, it has to, right? Demand just walked away. They walked away because they lost their job. They walked away because they lost their side hustle. They walked away because they lost hours, right? Demand walked away because they had a 640 credit score, and now the bank's telling them they can't lend to them unless they have a 680. Do you understand that? Right? Maybe nothing changed, but because of what's going on in the background, they now don't qualify. Or for them to qualify, they now have to pay points. Well, how do we get the seller to pay those points so the sucker still happens? Okay. So to me, we've got to be framing our sellers, and that's really what this whole tactic is about, right? We're not staging our buyers here. We're staging our sellers. How do we stage our sellers' properties so we're ready to win the price and beauty show? Okay. And it's a very different conversation than we were having just weeks ago. I want to open it up to some questions here, and let's dive into it. It can be on this topic, or it can be on anything that we've touched on so far, or just what's going on in your world. So,
Brad, I do have a question. So are you, just to clarify, are you saying with like the Matterport 3D, for example, are you saying don't directly link it into the listing, but somehow just in the marketing piece say virtual tour available upon request?
If I was an agent in your market today, that's exactly what I would do. And here's where I learned this lesson. In 2006, 7, somewhere in there, Maine's MLS added the ability to put documents in. And I was pretty heavy on land listings. I had a few subdivisions, had some other pieces of land, you know, because that's all we've got up here in Maine is freaking goats and land. That's it. So we put all of our stuff on there. It's like, hey, this is going to save a whole bunch of time, right? Put the disclosures up there, put the plot plans up there, you know, put it all up there. Awesome. And immediately the phone stopped ringing. Nobody had to call me anymore. First off, they don't have to call me to go walk a freaking piece of land, right? And now I've just given them all the information. So after a few weeks, I went, oh shit, take all of that crap back off. Take it back off. And then the agents started calling me, and Amanda would call me and go, hey, Brad, noticed your disclosure wasn't online. Can I get that? Absolutely, Amanda. Happy to get that over to you. Sorry for that. Who you got? What are they looking for? Oh, did you realize I have something in the next town over that kind of matches that? Have they checked that out? I'll forward that to you too. Do you mind if I follow up with you in a week or so to see if they've had a chance to walk it? I'm happy to meet your people out there. Blah, 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 right? I think we have the opportunity right now to do a similar thing. It's going to be short term, right? We could do a similar thing with our visual tours, our Matterports, that kind of stuff, right? Now we know who we can dance with, right? I need to watch this again. Where would it be posted? Joanne's doing a great job. We're posting this on some of the regional stuff. Joanne, where can they find this if somebody needs to watch this again?
I have them on my Facebook account, but I also
Great.
send out the reminder email.
Yep. Awesome.
And they're all included there.
So if you're not friends with Joanne Rogers, you're missing the boat. You're missing the boat. All right. Other questions. Here we go. Dive in.
This is Katie Treem.
Hi.
Hi. So if you have a person that wants to list a property
Yeah.
In one of those towns where you can't get in those properties, say like Portland, Maine,
Yeah.
do they have to take their own pictures? I can't send a photographer in there to get them.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So I need them to take their own pictures
Yeah.
and do their own video
Yeah.
if I'm going to do a video tour.
Yeah. And I
To
may
sell it in the
save
month of
I may
April.
save the video tour in that case to, hey seller, if I can set up a Zoom call with a potential buyer and their agent, would you be willing to hop on and do that tour live for that buyer? And if I was going to do that, understand I've created an opportunity where the buyer and seller could talk directly to each other, which I normally don't like to do.
Right. Yeah.
So I would want to seriously coach them, right?
Mhm.
On what they would say, what they wouldn't say, anything that they would answer, not answer, that kind of thing. Like I'd
Yep.
want it really limited to just, you're my camera guy. Shut your mouth, right?
Maybe
I'll
put
do the
them on
talking.
mute. Yeah. I'll put them on mute.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a real possibility.
Okay.
We have to put it through the filter, and some of you maybe experience this in other markets. We got to make sure we're giving our client the best advice, right?
Yeah.
Right now in Portland, we can't show the property, but a property could still go under contract on a virtual showing and all that kind of stuff. But demand is definitely going to be less near term, right? Unless I do some things with maybe pricing or whatever to drive up demand. And might they be in a better position 30 days from now? I don't know, right? I don't know. So I think you've just got to have a robust conversation with your clients and help them to discern what's the best possible decision for them. Keep them coming. What else we got? Thank
Hey,
you,
Brad.
Katie. Hi.
It's Mike from.
You're darn right it is.
Anyway, this is more of a comment as opposed to a question. I found I got the best reaction from sellers when I talked about staging. Okay, you walk into a nice place, it's not staged, and they say, gee, this is nice. The difference between that and having something staged is somebody walks in and goes, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It is an emotional difference.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have to really dramatize that to drive the point home. Because last year I started staging more, and actually I started staging period because I used to stage it myself and that really wasn't staging.
Right.
But there's an emotional difference. There's selling
Yes.
a house and then there's living in a house.
Yep.
And I found that a conversation 2 days ago about staging, and okay, yeah, let's look at that. That was the response.
Love it. Yeah, we still, our photography right now, our video work right now really is our first impression of the home. Especially if we're taking the government suggestions really seriously. We're not out showing property willy-nilly right now. And we really only have one chance to make that first impression. People are either looking for reasons not to buy it based off of the first impression, or they're now actively looking for reasons to buy it based off of the first impression. And I would argue that little decision point happens in the first couple of photos or in their first 60 to 90 seconds in the home. So we've got to take that very seriously. And people buy based off of emotion. They do. That's why I hated working with buyers. See, I'm a soulless human. I don't want to know about your emotions. Buy the freaking house or don't.
Brad,
I
don't
don't
sugarcoat
care.
it. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell us how you really feel.
Exactly. I don't care. Right? Much better wired to be working with investors. Right?
Another, I just want to throw out, I use an app called Video Shop.
Yeah.
It is really user-friendly for doing videos.
Yep.
And it's cheap. You got to teach yourself how to use it. If anybody has questions about how to use it and whatnot, I'm happy to give them all kinds of pointers.
Yep. Let me pause you here just quick. Lisa has shared her screen, and that's what all of us are looking at, or maybe I'm just looking at it. But Lisa,
no,
you've shared your screen, so you're going to have to unshare that if you would. Or maybe that's just me. Okay, a couple more questions. Thank you, Michael.
It's not just shoe. I'm going to try to get it off there.
Great, thanks. Other questions?
Brad, it's Patty Foden.
The Patty Foden. The Patty
Yes.
Foden. Thank you.
I have a condo at Blueberry Cove in Yarmouth, which a few weeks ago would have flown off the market in a day or two.
Yep.
I've had some interested buyers, and they're just all sitting on the fence. They're all being very cautious, and I left it empty because I didn't think we needed to stage it at the time. And now I'm wondering, do I go back to the seller and say, the market's changed a little bit. We might need to stage this condo.
Yeah, I think that's a realistic thing. I think the other thing is if you've got people who are interested in it, we went over this morning, and it was a term I haven't used in a long time, but man, I'm a fan of it. The reverse offer, right? There's nothing keeping Patty from having her sellers write up an offer to the most interested buyer party. And let's just say the property is listed for $500,000, but the sellers are willing to take $450,000. Instead of doing a price reduction, we could do a reverse offer to those buyers and saying, hey, we're willing to take $450,000 for the house. Have it all written up. So all the buyers have to do is frickin' sign their name to it, make it super easy. We could do stuff like that right now. So these are some of the tools that we'll probably be dusting off. If you can't do that or get something like that to happen, Patty, off of this first round of showings, then yeah, we're probably going to end up having to stage that sucker. I'd get in touch with somebody who's got a warehouse and bunch of stuff that they can get in there and get it looking good. How do we virtually stage land? Somebody asked. I think you've got to capture as many emotional photos as you can. And it may have more to do with the town, things that the land is going to give you access to, right? A lot of times, some of the first photos that you'll see for land in Maine is, what's the coastline look like that it's close to or that it has water access to, that kind of thing, even if it's not waterfront itself, maybe it's some photos of downtown Freeport because, it's walking distance to the shops and that kind of a thing. So I think you're selling what are the amenities that people would want to buy that land for? Is it because it's super rural and it's going to be a great camp? Or is it because it's close to jobs and close to, shopping and that kind of stuff? Well, then I'd be bringing in some photos of that kind of a thing. And yeah, we can virtually stage. There's companies out there that virtually stage stuff as well.
Yeah.
And creating a story around a piece of land, I think, is important. If anybody's watched that HGTV show, Hometown, right? Every home has a name. And I've joked with my wife, I'm like, if we drove to that town right now, I can guarantee you the guy at the gas station doesn't freaking know the name of his house, right? It's a story. They're making it up, right? Great. Come on, put on our marketing hats here. Let's make some stuff happen. All right, couple more questions and we'll let you go. What do you got?
Yeah, I have I'm Muriel.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, and I'm one of those newbies.
Great.
Yep, I've had two sales so far.
Wonderful.
Right now I have one under contingency with a home sale. It's a little hairy, but it's coming along.
Yep.
One of the folks that joined the same time I did, she does virtual tours for people.
Yep.
That's kind of a little niche that she has, and she showed it like she can just take an empty property and just plug it in, and then everything is right there, all done with computers.
Love it.
That's
I'd be partnering up with that person. I'd be
gotcha.
Figuring out ways to take advantage of that kind of tech.
Right.
And again, people are used to this to some extent. I mean, we're all living online. You know what I mean?
Right.
This is not new. It's just nudging us a little bit further in that direction right now. So yeah, and then just getting as much information out there as you can to help them in their decision making, I think is important. And I would hold some of it back enough so that we get them to prompt us with a phone call. So like, Patty's example, I know I've got a handful of people that I can dance with. There's brokers I can follow up with going, hey, what's their thought process at? Could you tell me other properties they're interested in? Do you think there's anything we could do to maybe get them off the fence now and getting them pulling the trigger now? I'm not promising I can do it, but if you have some ideas, I'd love to explore it, right? Anything else before I let you go?
It's very helpful.
Great.
How about those second home buyers? I'm having a little difficulty with getting them off the fence.
Sure. I think the best thing I can say with people who are hesitant right now is to tie them back to their long-term goals. What is the long-term goal for why they want to buy a second home? And is this short-term hiccup in what's going on in the world really affecting that? And if the answer is yes, okay, great, then we should probably hold off. If the answer is no, not really, okay, then great. Maybe I can help you find a deal, right? We might be able to get it for a little bit cheaper right now. Some of them, they have to hold off because the money they were going to use was money in the stock market, and they're feeling a little less confident today because they took a 20% haircut. So just depending on their situation, I'd go super deep in that conversation with people. Just go real deep on it.
Thank you.
You bet. I'm pretty sure our plans are, Joanne, and you can tell me to shut up, but we're going to run through the rest of shift between now and the middle of next week.
Yes.
I'll be back with you guys on Friday. And then I think starting next Wednesday, we're going to start Fierce Conversations.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that. But
Yes,
that's awesome.
yes. So if you haven't dug into this material before, Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott, awesome author, wonderful woman, great, just kind of thinker. This material is going to help all of us lean into the challenging conversations to come, right? If we've learned anything in a shifting market, it's the conversations get more and more challenging as we live through it. And we have to have the skills and the fortitude to be able to do that and shift the foundational concepts in the shift book, or not in the shift book, in the Fierce Conversations book, can really help us with that. So we're going to do about 10 or 14 sessions on that material, really skilling up the words that we use so we can better serve our clients at this time. So Charlotte Lou, hi. I see you hiding there. Very nice. All right, well, Joanne, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for hopping on, everybody. Hopefully this has been of value. If you need me, I'll throw up my cell phone number here right now, just quick, and copy that down if you don't already have it. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brad.
You bet. Thanks, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Brad.